It was this day 1 year ago that we actually launched Let's Go Racing with David Starr, and we recorded it on a Monday night. It was November 30th. We released it on December 1st, and a few months later, we shifted the schedule a little bit to do our show on a Tuesday nights and release it on Wednesday. But nonetheless, David, where has the time gone? I mean, we've had so much fun doing this show, whether it's been nights like this where it's the three of us or guests that we brought in. Where's the time gone? We've had so much fun. What comes to mind are some of your favorite memories this past year doing this show, David?
Man, it's just it's such a man. I love it to have the opportunity for you guys to talk about the news of the week and the races and analyze the race from the past weekend. And but man, the podcast, just a year just seems like it goes by so quick. It's like, we do our podcast on Tuesday nights, y'all air it Wednesday, and then next thing you know, it's like, man, it's time to do the podcast again. It just, time flies when you're having a good time. But man, some of my favorite moments have been, I think, having Mike Skinner and Brendan Gaughan and Jeff Bodine and Jeff Hammond, and just, man, we've had some really some of my great friends and some superstars of the sport on here. I just thought that's just been awesome to have all our guests to join in on us and to give us their insight on the sport and from their perspective and learn a little bit more about them. But I think one of my favorite one is when last December, when we did a podcast from my with my Christmas tree in the background, and my wife joined in on us. I thought that was pretty cool. That was pretty neat deal. But man, it's amazing. It's been a year, but man, it's been cool. I remember when both of you guys came to me with this idea, let's do this podcast. And man, I think it took me a while to really wrap my arms around it. And, y'all were very patient with me, but very persistent. And it's been pretty cool, man. It's a lot of fun. And I remember thinking, it's like, podcast, what are we going to talk about? You know what I mean? And but man, there's never a shortage for things and topics to talk about when you talk about stock car racing and our whole racing industry. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's for certain. It's been a lot of fun to do this show this past year. And Dominic, you and I, we wanted to do a NASCAR show of some sorts for a long time, but we didn't know exactly how we wanted to do it. And I had the idea of let's get David involved, and a couple months later, this thing came together pretty fast. Of when we had the idea of when we started the show. It's certainly been a lot of fun, and to do it with the three of us. I mean, we're not only just co-hosts. I mean, we're three of the best of friends of some sorts. I mean, this is real what the people see every week.
Oh, of course. And to think it all started with a great conversation, Championship Weekend 2019, Homestead, Miami, a few weeks before the pandemic hit. And we're just kind of sitting sharing ideas. But yeah, Tyler, you're the one that really took the lead on it. And you're like, hey, I got an idea here. Let's collaborate with David. We've talked about doing something in the past. Let's make it happen. Let's take it to that next step. You did. And we always give Sherry Eaton, the late Sherry Eaton, a lot of credit for bringing us together and kind of mention the idea. But yeah, Tyler, I don't think you can really say enough on like how much you're a bigger reason this show is existing to 1 year into this as well. Because not only the persistence in making sure it happened, but doing all the logistics and all the background work to make this show work. I can't believe you're on it. But yeah, Tyler, you're a big reason we're here today. And man, it's been a lot of fun doing this whole ride with you guys. Never would have thought we'd be doing this a whole year.
Yeah, thank you, Tyler.
Yeah, well, you thank me, but we wouldn't be here without you guys either. So I mean, not enough about me as far as that goes. Dominic, what's some of your favorite memories of this past year, man?
I would say doing the show in December when we had the families on, like how David said, he and Kim, they were in front of the Christmas tree. You had your dad on. I got to have the guy I look up to, not just because he's taller than me, but my little brother who's just kicking some butt in life. And we got to have him on the show. That has to be one of my favorite memories for sure. Having Jeff Bodine on, all the guests we've had to all the live shows. And I was telling you before we started the show, Tyler, I don't really get starstruck. That's not something that's really happened to me, but I will say it was one of the cooler moments when we were doing our Champions themed shows in May, and we're getting our show ready for Mario Andretti. And on the Zoom thing, it says, Mario Andretti has entered the weight room. I have to say, that was one of the coolest things I've ever seen. I even had to take a photo of that. That was pretty cool. That was one of those snapshot in time moments for sure. And having him on the show and just all the guests we've had and the dynamic that we have built here with the three of us, there's some great chemistry here. There's just so many cool memories that have happened. I'm curious what some of your favorite memories are, Tyler.
Yeah, for me, Mario Andretti certainly comes to mind. That was one that when I got that confirmed that we're going to bring him on, that I'm certainly excited for. But when we had Willie T. Ribbs on, that was one for me, guys, that was all encompassing. It was not only a learning experience, not only a situation where we were bringing on a big name in Willie T. Ribbs, but emotional too. I found myself just touched, and watching his documentary on Netflix afterwards and seeing more about his story and such. That was one where, I learned so much after having him on and watching his documentary, where I felt like I was a better person for getting to know Willie and knowing his story. So that to me is one that stands out, is when we had Willie T. Ribbs on and just all the life lessons that came about that. And, that's what's made this show so unique at times, is that we have a lot of fun. We laugh and we have a great time, but we get real sometimes on this show too. And we're not afraid to open up and share where we come from and where we've been. And I felt like we really opened up things when Willie T came on, when he was here back in June, I believe it was, when he was here on Let's Go Racing. David, that was a special moment, wasn't it?
Man, that was very special. Having raced with Willie and becoming, and not only just racing against him, as having him be a great competitor, but becoming good friends with him back in 2003, I think it was, when he drove for the late great Bobby Hamilton. I don't know. We just developed a friendship, over time, and man, he was just a cool dude to be around. And I knew there was a lot of history, a lot of IndyCar history and Trans Am road racing history with Willie T, but I didn't really understand it completely until I was on a flight on American Airlines and I watched his documentary. And I had to say, man, I was looking to my left and my right because I had some tears coming down my cheeks, man. It was very emotional. And him being a friend of mine, I didn't realize that the barriers it wasn't easy for him. He made the driving part look easy, and the successes he had and the races he won, and he was a force to be reckoned with. And man, he was on top of his game. But learning some of the things that nobody should ever have to go through just to prove yourself. The talent was there, but just because your skin color was different from others, was a little bit more of a challenge to him. And just hearing you speak about him, it was a very emotional interview. You kind of, when we were done, it really made you, it was educational, and you felt, I don't know, I just felt even proud to have a friend like Willie T. Ribbs, and man, it did make you a better person, but man, what a great guest he was.
And Tyler, to kind of add on to that too, and just sharing some of these other memories, and maybe I'm backtracking a couple steps, but there's just so many cool moments on this show over the last year. And David, you orchestrated getting Joe Dan Bailey on our show. I believe that was in April or March of last year. Mm-hmm. And kind of like how we've learned a lot during these shows. I don't know if you felt the same way, Tyler, but as somebody who obviously has never driven at the professional level, only at the local short track level, when you hear somebody like Joe Dan Bailey come on the show, had an engineering background, and like talk about his experiences working with Dale Earnhardt to working with Toyota Racing Development, how they develop their drivers, I really felt like I was a better student of the sport after that episode, because you have somebody come on like that who has such a depth of knowledge about the sport, and they explain it in a way where you're hinging on every word they had to say. That episode with Joe Dan Bailey, I felt like I should have been taking notes in some sort of classroom, because school was in session. Joe Dan Bailey was the professor, and I learned a lot in that show.
Yeah, I think that was a great way to put it. And, I think one of the things that that gets my attention too is the ins and outs of this sport. Dominic, I mean, you and I, we obviously haven't raced, we haven't been on any pit crews or anything like that, but we are students of the game, as they say. And hearing from the likes of Joe Dan Bailey of how things work behind the scenes in driver development, from the likes of Mike Skinner to how things go down in the truck series, to Jeff Hammond telling us about not only being a crew chief, but the media side. To me, that's been my biggest joy, is somebody that has loved this sport, been a fan for a long time, is being a student of the game, learning about this sport, the ins and outs. This show, I feel like I know so much more about this sport than I would have had we ever not done this show, Dominic.
I totally agree on that. I've learned so much, and you always want to have that mentality where you never stop learning. You want to continue to learn more about anything that you're involved in. And this show has definitely given me that avenue for it. And one of my other favorite memories too to share, and David, you can kind of chime in on this too, right? So a little bit behind the scenes and a little backstory on this. We try to schedule our guests out a week to two out, and sometimes a few weeks out, even so, if the schedule permits. But hey, life happens. And guests we've had just haven't panned out in the past, or like a day before, hey, so-and-so can't make it, we got to push them to next week. So David and I are scrambling on the phone. We get Tyler, hey, who are we going to get on our show? I got to say, that's a lot of fun pulling that together too, because they always say the best products come out sometimes when you're kind of backed up against the wall, and hey, life happens. But those are some of my favorite memories too. Like, okay, working the phones, who are we going to get on our show this week when we've had the lineup and the block of guest day? That's been a lot of fun.
Absolutely. And I don't know if I call it fun or stressful. But
we've had times where we were calling people up before the show even started to find somebody at the 11th hour.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And some of my favorite times, to be honest with you, is when we did it live. I think the 2 Texas races when we were all together in a condo after we got through racing and having a live audience. I thought that was really, it was kind of cool to have a live audience as we do our show, our podcast. And I just thought that was kind of a special moment for us, you know what I mean? And that's some of my favorite stuff right there.